So here we have where the steering column goes on. There'll be a pinch bolt holding that onto there. That comes through the hole in the bulkhead. Then we've got new rubbers fitted, obviously with cable ties on either end. Here you can see where got tape around the threads here, so when you take the track rod end off and you can count how many rotations, but also if you put a piece of tape there, it can give the position for the nuts to go back on. Right, we're just getting a couple of threads on, and that will mean that it won't drop away. Right, so here we can see the steering column coming through, and obviously we have a bit of rotation of that, and then the other thing, just there, you can see access to the filler or greaser. There'll be a rubber bung that goes in there in a little bit. Let's go find the right spanner for these. Let's try and get these evenly tightened down, so that the U bracket is, or the U bolt or whatever you call it, is evenly done. As I say, this can't be tightened down yet until we've got the steering column aligned. Otherwise, we'll have too much. There'll be too much pressure on the join if it's trying to go in at an angle like that. So just need to make sure it's all aligned when it all gets fully tightened up. Okay, that'll do for now. Fitting this steering rack mostly in position, as I say, tweaks later, but there we go. Got a box in here, poking through there. Quick look up under here, one steering rack. So that's important to get that in. That has to go in before the, it doesn't have to, but it's a lot easier to put it in before the subframe goes in. Lots more to do before the subframe's going in anyway. Right guys, time to look at the engine. I'm not going to call this a restoration of the engine or anything, but literally just going to replace a couple of things with the head, do lapping of the valves. So valve stem oil seals and guides and lapping of the valves. Basically it's just to put a new head gasket in and make sure we've not got oil leaks for emissions for the MOT. Right, okay, so we've got the head bolts off now, and just took the thermostat cover off there. Around here though, I've undone these. So these are the bypass hose. I'm going to just replace that, just because, you know, may as well put a new one on while we can. So yeah, should be able to lift off the head. Let's have a look and see. Right, there we go, heads off. Just need a little tidy up around here, but a bit of crap at the top of the boards, but we need to get it cleaned off and then see how it's looking. Right, not sure if you'll be able to hear this. Right then, not sure what video I've got of this elsewhere, but here's the head. What have we done to the head? Well, we had all of this out. The main reason was because we were replacing the valve stem oil seals, which are little bits of rubber that go over the valve guides inside the springs here. So we've got new ones of those on the inlets, and I've actually moved the old ones to the exhausts, because on these 998 heads of this period, the exhausts don't have any on them at all. So we now have new ones on the inlets and the old ones on the exhausts, just to help out. We compress the valves basically using a big G-clamp that goes under there, sits on the valve, sits on top of the spring, and you wind it down and push the valve down, and then the two little collets, little half circles that fit into the groove on the valve, sit in the top of the spring there. So while we had them out, we used lapping compound, and we just lapped the valves in the valve seats a bit, try and improve that. Also, the exhaust valves were loose, they would wiggle in their valve guides, so we swapped the valve guides to new ones. So these are the new valve guides, but I've only done the exhaust ones because bit of a nightmare to get these out with DIY tools, and yeah, the inlet ones were perfect. And what I mean by that is when you pulled the valve through, if you held your finger over the end of the valve guide, there was suction force, and when you pulled it through and pulled it out completely, it would make a little popping sound. So when you got the when you get the valves in, something that's good to do is just pull the valve, so it's just the head's just inside the valve guide there, and then this should have almost no sideways rock. Obviously there's going to be a little bit, but you know, way less than a mil. When I did that first with the exhaust valves, they were rocking about. Another good thing is if you place your finger over the end of the valve guide and pull the valve, push and pull the valve, you should feel your finger being sucked in to the valve guide, and you should feel the suction on the valve when you're moving it, and maybe even, yeah, that little popping sound telling me that there was suction and that they were a good fit. On the exhaust ones they wouldn't do that, apart from number 3. 1, 2 and 4 wouldn't do that, and they were loose. So anyway, new valve guides for the exhaust valves, new valve stem seals for the inlets, a general clean up, bit more of a clean up on the inlet ports here to smooth out. Sometimes it's a bit too much of a step here, but yeah, I've just smoothed that slightly. Obviously I've not done porting and polishing, that would need a machine shop. It's still not a unleaded head, so these could be converted in the future, but I'm just leaving it original for now. We need hardened seats, hardened valve seats for unleaded. So yeah, these are all refitted. Then I've refitted the studs in here, and what I'm just also doing is refitting the studs on the engine block. Right, just popping on the head gasket here after making sure this was all nice and clean, and it's back in the same position with these two at top dead centre. Fitted, obviously, and because you're taking the head off, you don't have to fit one of those crappy expandable ones. If you forget, you will have to fit one of those, which you don't want to do. That one there. So obviously remember to put the clips in as well. So now just a case of putting the rods down and then putting the nuts on and then tightening them in the right order, and we can put the we'll have to put the rockers on as well. Right then, next thing to do, now I've got a nice cold engine, I can set the gaps for the valve clearance. So on everything apart from maybe Cooper S's or something, 12A's I think they're called, so this is a 998, 99 engine, so everything should be at 0.30 of a millimetre. It's basically this gap in here between the top of the valve and the actual rocker arm. What you have to do, turn the engine and then check the right one. So to check number 1, number 8 needs to be fully open, or this needs to be fully down, or the rod needs to be fully up. So that valve is fully open, pushing its hardest on there. This valve then isn't pushing and is as far away as it's going to be. So that 0.30 millimetre allows for the heat expansion of the engine, the valve and the rod, to make sure that they won't bind. If you have it any tighter than that, then yeah, they will do. And if it's too loose, then the engine will be running poorly and inefficiently. Valve timing will be completely off. It'll be what will it do? It'll be opening too late and then closing too late. Is that right? Something like that. Anyway, I've checked this gap in here, so you'll need a set of feeler gauges, and you'll have to look up online which one needs to be open to check the other one. Basically, you put your feeler gauge in there, and this is really loose. I don't know if you can, you probably can't see, but I can fit one that's about 0.8 in there at the minute, so that's really bad actually. So what I have to do is get my spanner, half-inch spanner, on there, which is on the nut on the back of the rocker, and then use my screwdriver. So I've got to just undo the nut, if I can move it, and then we take our screwdriver and we can adjust it. Now that's too much because I can't pull it. It should be like rubbing when you move it like this, okay? So you can get it in there and you can slide it, but you feel the resistance to the slide. Once you have that correct, put your screwdriver back in the slot, hold it exactly where it was, nip your nut up tight.